where to be mobile for the golf swing. So it's really pretty simple. There are zones of mobility in our body that are kind of designed to be mobile, right? That they were given to us to be mobile so that we can move in a very efficient fashion. Sometimes they don't stay mobile for a number of reasons, right? So tightness, arthritis, aging, injuries, all these things. So we're going to be mobile in the hips, all right? And I don't know if you can see my pointer, but we've got the hips, we got the mid back, or what we call the thoracic spine. We got the shoulders, the ball and socket of the shoulders, makes sense, they should be mobile. And we got the neck. If you are not mobile in those 4 zones, or let's say you're limited in like 2 of 4 of those, it's going to be, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time having an efficient golf swing. Okay. So we're going to go full screen here, and I'm going to take you through a little bit of assessment for the hip. So the first thing's for the hip. So what you want to do, if you don't have it with you, that's fine. You can always come back and test this. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a 7-iron. Okay. And I'm going to take the 7-iron, and I'm going to basically make sure that the kind of the heel of the club is parallel with me. I'm going to set it on the ground, and then that shaft angle, and I'll kind of show you this from here, right? That shaft angle is about 60 degrees or so. Okay, I'll make sure I kind of line that up properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of my weight on 1 foot at a time. All right, all of my weight on 1 foot at a time. I'm going to line myself up. If you don't have a 7-iron or club with you right now, just kind of practice this so you get a feel for it. But I'm going all my weight on one leg, toes on the opposite leg for balance. And then I'm going to turn my hips, right? Everything can go. So my trunk, my hips, this leg here can go. But I'm going to see, can I get the face of my pelvis, can I get that lined up with that shaft of the club, right? Because that's about 60 degrees. And then I'm going to do my opposite leg. All right, I'm going to put all my weight on one leg. I'm going to be light on my toes here, and I'm going to still go. This is kind of my downswing follow through. I'm going to go both directions, right? And I'm a little bit more limited there. If you can see my hands, I'm probably not getting parallel with that club. All right, and then if I switch sides and I go the opposite way, all right, I'm going on my other leg now. Again, rotating, everything can go. I feel pretty good with internal rotation. You can almost see that you can't see my trail hand here. So that's pretty good. And then if I go to the other side and go that way, again, a little bit tougher rotating and kind of opening that hip there for me. So that's a really simple hip rotation assessment. And what's great about it is that you're weight bearing. So you know that this is going to kind of mimic the golf swing a little bit. And if you have a hard time, you'll maybe hear me say this till I'm blue in the face. If you have a hard time doing this in these 4 walls or in a controlled environment, it's not all of a sudden magically going to happen in the golf swing. Okay. So that's the hip mobility assessment there. And what you want to do is just, first of all, in the chart, measure, are you able to do it or not? Did it hurt or not? Okay. That's basically as simple as you can. Do you feel like you were able to get a good full turn going each leg, each direction, downswing and follow through? And then were you able to do it without pain? All right, I'm sorry, I'm just checking the chat here. So any questions about that, make sure you let me know. All right, so that's the hip mobility. Check and see how you did. Was it easy? Was it hard? Was it painful? That's what we gotta look at. All right. Now, the next thing that you're going to need is a chair. And I apologize, I forgot to mention, we don't need a lot of equipment today. You need a little bit of space, right? And you need a chair or a ground to work on. So we're going to go through the mid back next. All right, the hip rotation. Hopefully everybody's got that down. Questions, make sure you let me know. But the next one is relatively easy. You're going to take a club or a dowel or something, and then you're going to grab a chair. And what I want to sit about 45 degrees off the corner of the chair. And as I sit 45 degrees off the corner of the chair, I'll try to give you good views here, so bear with me. As I sit 45 degrees off the corner of the chair, you can see how I have the chair angled, right? And I'm going to go 45 degrees off the corner. And then I'm going to bring the club across my shoulders like so. Or if you don't have a club, right now, you can just give yourself a hug. It takes a little bit out of it. It makes it a little bit easier. But if you go club across the shoulders, I'm keeping my knees together. And then without my knees shifting side to side or without my knees separating, what I'm going to do is try to rotate my spine as far as I can. And now what I'll do is I'll just take a glance down. My shoulders, not the club, but do my shoulders go past that 45-degree angle of the chair, right? So you can get a sense with this of, if I look shoulder to shoulder, am I getting that line, that 45-degree line on the chair? Am I getting that either direction? If not, obviously you're going to be less than 45 degrees rotation. We want at least 45 degrees rotation through the mid back for the swing. So if you don't have it, or it's painful, this is going to be a really important one to note, because a lot of those swing characteristics I talked about before, early extension, over the top, the thoracic spine is a big area for people. And that's, a big area of usually a big challenge area for people. So that's going to be important to make sure you note that. Could you at least get to 45, and was it painful or not? Okay. So we have hips and we have the mid back. I think both of those are obvious about why they're important. You need to be able to rotate. Golf is a single leg sport, so you need to be able to rotate through one hip and kind of load and get into it, and then pivot and post into the other hip and rotate and load into that. That makes sense. I think it makes sense for us about the spine turn, right? And how that mid back is going to be our ribs and our mid back are going to be our primary area for opportunity to move. And if you're tight and stiff there, it's really hard to get that turn and that side bend that you want. And then we're going to talk about shoulders. And I think shoulders are obviously important for the swing, but why they're important is kind of what's really important is the why behind it. So obviously being mobile and everything through the shoulders is going to be really important. But what we don't think about is the position of the club at the top, right? So as I take the club back, I need this really good rotation, especially through this trail shoulder. And this external rotation of the shoulder, as I come to the top, is really, really, really going to dictate what happens on the transition, right? So if I can't get this shoulder rotated well, you can imagine kind of where the club would be pointed, right? So instead of having good, rotation and having the club be here, maybe my rotation doesn't, and I'm starting with the club here at the top. And then you can think about how, as you come back down to the ball, look what happens to the club. I'm automatically over the top coming outside to in. Or if I can get this rotation through the shoulder, now as I come down, you can see what happens. What's going to happen with the club here. Obviously, you need some wrist hinge, but if I can get that rotation through the shoulder, it's really going to dictate a lot of what happens with the club path. I think a lot of people underestimate the importance of that and what happens at the top of the swing. So how do we measure shoulder rotation? All right. Very, very cool and easy test. Whether you're a golfer or not, and you want to assess your shoulder health, this is really, really cool. Okay. So what you do, it's really simple. You get yourself lined up in a mirror, or in this instance on my screen, but you want to have that elbow. You can see my shoulders here. Obviously, you want to have that elbow in line with the shoulder. And then keeping the elbow bent about 90 degrees, all I'm going to do is just wind up as far as I can. All right. Now that elbow can't creep forward. It can't creep back. Keep that elbow covering that shoulder. Wind up as far as you can. And you can see with me, thankfully, that my forearm actually goes past the angle of my spine, right? I can actually take that farther than the angle of my spine. So that would be good prerequisite mobility for my shoulder. And this is my trail shoulder. So I don't have many excuses to not have a decent transition at the top, other than I'm not as good of a golfer as I want to be. But so I can do that. All right. So that's the first test. Just can you or can't you? Does it hurt or doesn't it? If you're tight and limited, you're gonna bring that back, and you're gonna be kind of somewhere in here, right? The angle of my forearm is not gonna be lining up with my spine like this or beyond like that. Okay. Now that's the first part, mobility. Second part is the strength. So if I come into my golf posture here, and this is what you can do at home, you can set up in your golf posture, which means trunk is kind of flexed forward, right? I'm imagining that I'm holding the club, or you can actually hold the club. But I'm coming into my golf posture, I'm bringing that elbow back up, and then I'm going to rotate as far as I can this way. All right. Can I match? Can I match that position? Do I get as far into rotation when I'm in that trunk flexed position? or am I limited, right? And is it painful again? So if you can get as far in the golf posture as you could when you're straight up and down, that's wonderful. If you struggled, then you have probably more of a strength issue. Okay, so that's another important one. There is that rotation. And what I would have you do again is make sure that you do both sides. So you can do your left, self lined up here. You can do your left, right, wind it up. That looks fairly good, although it feels a little bit tougher for me over here. I come into my golf posture, bring that elbow back up, rotate from there, and I actually get tiny twinge of pain there. So we'll work on that, but that's good. And then last but not least, we have the neck. All right, and the neck is probably the most simple one to address. Again, very underrated in terms of the golf swing. So I'm gonna break to my screen right away. So if you think about what happens in the golf swing, again, I'm set up in my golf posture here. All right. And if you think about what happens, I'm keeping my head square to the, or mostly square. There's some movement of the head, but I'm trying to keep my focus on the target, right? And as I keep my focus on the target, my shoulders are hopefully turning back here. Now, what happens is if my head stays put, but my shoulders are turning underneath that, that's actually neck range of motion now, or there's some neck requirements there. So it's really, really important. If you have a hard time, you never think about this, but if you have a hard time getting a full turn like you maybe want, yes, it could be the mid back, yes, it could be the hips, but it could also be the neck. So how do we assess neck mobility? Is we just start tall and I square my shoulders up again. And all I'm trying to do here is rotate the neck as far as I can without the shoulders turning, right? So I rotate the neck as far as I can without the shoulders turning. And then I try to touch my chin to my collarbone. Okay. Basically, the test is, can you get the shoulder beyond the mid collarbone area? Can you rotate far enough that the chin goes beyond the mid collarbone? And then can you touch the chin to the collarbone? Okay. And again, this is a very common one. Are you gonna feel limited, right? Like, is this what you got? And then this is what you got. That's gonna be tightness. Okay. If you can do it, and it's kind of again like me, I need to do some work today. But if it's like me, I can pretty much get there, but it doesn't feel great. And again, that's going to be something that I need to be able to get here in the golf swing. So it's kind of an underrated portion. Okay, so those are the 4 key zones of mobility. So just to recap, you have your hip test, okay, and you'll get the replay of this. You also have your chart, so make sure you go through and just let me know how you did, or if you have your chart on your own, you can go through these on your own another time. But we have the hips, the mid back, the shoulder, and the neck